it is really interesting, Julie, to hear about your journey with kimchi. It makes me feel like kimchi is not only about the food, but also a family connection, and then your passion for learning and teaching language as well. So while I'm reading the kimchi book, I really enjoy it. And then my research interest is on translanguaging. So and you are also an expert in translanguaging. So I would like to ask, like when I'm reading the book, there is a mix of Korean and English. Was that a deliberate choice, or like any reason for mixing those languages? Maybe you can tell more about that.
I'd love to. Yes, thank you for the question. Um, I think the translanguaging element. Well, first of all, I think this is an accurate representation of how I would speak in my everyday life, especially if I'm going to be introducing something about Korea to somebody else. I mean, there's no reason for me to hide or translate the Korean words. So what you're seeing in here and the ways in which I bring the Korean is very much how I would speak. But I suppose being a language educator, which is one of my big identities, I did want it to pop out a bit so that people would not just gloss over it, which is why, like in a page like this, we would have the Korean words written in red. Okay, so that's one of the deliberate choices that I've made. But another thing I was thinking about is I really like to read, and I read a lot of multilingual books. And in these multilingual books, I often find sometimes that like people will put different scripts. Like if you put Chinese, for instance, there's like the English, there's the Chinese characters, and then there's the pinyin, and that's just too much, I find, sometimes in one page. So and I was making those decisions too. Well, I put the Hangul in here as well, the Korean alphabet, and then I just thought, oh my god, that's too much. Maybe I'd give it some dedicated space. So if you look at the ingredients page, I have the English, the Hangul, and then the transliteration, the sounds of the Hangul, of the Korean words. And that way everybody can engage with it, and it doesn't seem too overwhelming. I actually think people like to see the different scripts, and I think that's a really important thing that I like to show off.
And it is also a very good aspect to learn the languages as well.
True.
When you are reading the book.
That's right. I find like some of my Chinese students, because they've all learned Hangul, they can actually read it, and they have such joy and pleasure in reading it. The other place that I really made a strategic decision was the index, where I wanted to put the Korean words, the sounds, then the Hangul, and then the English, so that anybody looking at something can also find it immediately. So these are some strategic decisions, and those decisions are made because we want people to engage with the book. What's the point of not, like making a book like this and then not engaging with it?
So that's why you give the name. Kimchi is for everyone. And it is so important to really make the book inclusive for every reader, so they can engage with the content of the book.
That's right. And that's something I really did think about a lot. Not only at that level, but also if you're making a picture book, you are also thinking about the language, not just for like adults. Of course, adults can read it, but also it has to be a range of children at different age ranges that can read it. So those are a lot of decisions that I had to make. Oh, and that really reminds me then of it's not just the language element that makes people engage with it, but in a picture book, you really have to make the modes, the other semiotic resources like the illustrations, to really make sense with the text, right? And this is where I was thinking with, if you have children who are very young, they're not going to be able to read certain aspects of the book. Like for instance, the aspects like the Did You Know page, where this is about the science elements of why kimchi is actually healthy food. And I think this can be harder information for young children to learn. So if you look at a page like this one.
Oh, I remember this page.
Yes.
This one is very impressive for me because it makes me remember very clearly like two elements that are the key ingredients of kimchi. I guess this one is gochugaru and this one is jotga. I can remember clearly about this one because of the pictures.
Exactly.
Like I can see how these pictures are coming together to really
Yes.
tell me the ingredients of kimchi.
Because just telling you that something chokka, this salted seafood and gochugaru together, it's not gonna do much for you.
Children.
But if you could see the happy,
Ah,
characters,
yeah.
being friendly together,
Yeah.
yes, it has meaning.
Yeah.
And it will remain in your mind. And that goes for adults too. It's not just for children. Especially if you are thinking about cultural symbols or traditions or words, it really is helpful to have some visuals around. And I don't regard that just for children. So, as you can see, when we look at a picture book like this, we're not thinking just about words. And I think that's where sometimes translanguaging scholars, if they limit meaning to just words and the different languages, then that's actually, I think, a narrow view of how we think about meaning making. So what I just love working on this book is because it allowed me to use all my meaning making resources to make this thing. So it was really fun. It was like the more I started making it, the more I started feeling like I could be more open and more maybe show a bit more about my personality and things like that. One of my absolute favorites is this type B where the kimchi is running after the person and the person is trying to run away from it. These are things that we cannot really do with academic writing, but in a picture book we can start to be free and to be a bit more humorous. So that's those are the kinds of translanguaging elements I think that I've deliberately kind of put into this book.
I think I belong to this type.
Oh, type A.
Yeah, type A. People who are very obsessed with kimchi.
Oh, that's me for sure.
Oh, okay, that's me as well.
But then type C, that was me too. When I was a kid, I was forced to eat a lot of kimchi. But yeah, like there are also people who are not able to do that.
I think I learned a lot I learned a lot from today, like stories. I feel like translanguaging shows that language is actually not the only way to make the meaning or to communicate the information, but it is also important to consider like there are images here and then there are colors, as you said, you put the text in red to attract the reader, and also the way every elements like images and arrows are all arranged in one page. So I think I have never thought about that before. I feel like that is so meaningful, like to also consider the spatial arrangements as well in the book. So I know you have talked about the book a lot, like each part that represents translanguaging, but what I'm quite interested in is to know like any particular elements that you want to point out personally, like your favorite one.
Oh my god, there's actually quite a few.
Yeah, but don't spill the whole book.
Okay. Noted. Actually, one of the elements that really, there's actually really just two that I probably want to point out. One is this page here where my auntie is on the balcony in Seoul. This is an apartment, a modern apartment in Seoul, and she's on the balcony and she's making the kimchi. So if you look at the original photo and then this photo, you can really get a sense that, hey, this is the city. And here are these people doing this kind of traditional thing, right? So it's like the modern and the tradition, kind of coming together. And in the actual photo, I just love the way that the sun is kind of setting, and here's my aunt who is, in her 80s, kind of making this thing, sitting there and doing this thing that's really quite traditional. There's something about that it just really kind of captures modernity, like where we are right now, but people are still holding on to their traditions. And I just think that is something so beautiful, but also so fragile, because none of the Korean, I wouldn't say none, but many Korean families don't do this anymore. As you can see, it's labor intensive, and everybody's just buying kimchi. You could just buy it, and it's delicious. And plus the fact that, well, in the past we used to have something called ongi. So yeah.
Oh, I remember that page.
Yeah. The earthenware, right? And we would bury that deep in the ground in the winter, and then you can have kimchi, all year long. But now we've got the refrigerators, and they're all packed in nicely in these containers, and everything is made very, very convenient. So I think there's still a period in time in Korea where you can still hold on to a lot of the traditions, but now we have a lot of modern things to go with it. So this is something that I just remember it a lot. And you talked a little bit about the spatial things too, and that's for me, that spatial element is really interesting. The home, modern homes, and then doing these traditional things, and even the way we sit, and how we're hunched over and do all these things is very Korean to me. And just one other element would be this one here, where my auntie is feeding me a little bit of this kimchi. So this is actually really important to me. This particular page, I really asked the illustrator to put some energy in, because there's a type of kimchi called gatjari. Okay, gatjari. Yeah, gatjari. And gatjari is like the fresh batch of kimchi. So the day that we finish making it, usually aunties will take one or two batches and leave it aside, and that's gonna be our lunch batch to eat together with
the leftover kimchi.
Yes, that's right.
That is not put into the refrigerator.
The very first. It's almost like salad. It's very crisp and it's beautiful. And when my auntie does this, what she normally does is take off one part of the leaf, and she'll put an oyster in the middle, and she'll wrap it up and put it in my mouth. And that, for me, when she does that, it's just the moment of being home. I just feel complete. I just feel like a complete human being when she does this. So, I live my life here in Australia. I have to teach, I have to research, I have to all these things. I don't have any of this kind of contact, something so embodied. And, just your auntie to put that in your mouth in the very first batch. That's why I say, you go off to oyster heaven in this photo. Yeah. Okay. So this is, I as you can see, as you also pointed out, this book really is about me. Like everything about this represents my researcher identity. I mean, think about it. Even at the end here, I put in the methodology, page. It's my researcher identity, it's my language teacher identity, it's my own multilingual identity of how I speak and how I like to represent myself. So I think you nailed it. And it's
so many elements. Yeah. I can see how there are so many elements, including emotions, and then the cultural practice, and then the family traditions, all of them, they come together to really help you think about how to create this book, and including the message that you want to say in this book.
That's right. And to do that, oh my goodness, look at all the semiotic resources I needed. The colors, the illustrations, the languages, and all the decisions that go into this according to the purpose, the context, the audience. There's so many elements, and I actually did have a pretty hard time putting it all together, but I did enjoy it immensely. And I realized that it's something that people actually read, and I'm not entirely sure that they're always reading the academic stuff, but yeah, they do read the picture books.
Yeah, I think I will definitely go back to the book, read it again after our conversation today because I feel like I might get some new insight looking at this book again.
Wonderful.
Okay, so I felt very lucky that I have the book, but what about like viewers of this video who do not have the book? Like are there any ways to get this book?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I made this really just for educational purposes, so I'm not selling it.
Yeah.
But you know, if people are interested, I'd be interested if you know if they want to contact me, then they can. And
That will be too easy. Probably we should give the viewers some tasks, right?
ooh, that's a great idea. And will they have to win the book then?
Probably. Okay, let's think about it.
Okay, let's see.
And then we will let them know.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Cool.